A lot of people have reached out to me asking me if I'm okay because of this headline that you see on your screen. There was a missile attack, a direct hit in the town of Beit Shemesh, about 30 minutes outside Jerusalem. That is where I live. I'm in Beit Shemesh right now. And we actually heard the impact. We heard the sound. We heard the boom from sitting inside our safe room, our bomb shelter in our home. And it was a pretty devastating attack. Let's get to it, and we'll start our update right there. Number of wounded in Beit Shemesh strike being treated in hospitals rises to 50. There were 9 people killed as of now. That's the number. Hadassah Ein Kerem reports it's treating 18 people who were injured in the strike, including 3 children. Others went to other hospitals. That's one of the major hospitals in Jerusalem. So a different hospital had 17 people, 15 people. And then others went to other places. This was a mass casualty event, the first one of the war in terms of Israeli civilians. There were a few other people who were killed. I think there were 2 others who were killed in Tel Aviv prior to this, but this was a major tragedy. Again, a direct hit today. And I was asked about it. I went on, I frequently appear on Steve Bannon's War Room, and he asked me about this today, about, what it's doing to the spirit of the Israeli people. And I just said, look, it's terrible. It's a terrible tragedy. We mourn the loss of every life, but Israelis have their eyes wide open. We have since October 7th. We always have. We know that these situations are costly and that there will be costs. I made this point, especially in light of the fact that Americans, according to polling, are in favor of taking down the Iranian regime, but they don't want to incur any casualties. And I understand that they don't see it as an existential threat. But here in Israel, we're very resilient. We understand that there are costs. It is a tragedy, but we also know that what we are suffering from these missile attacks is a drop in the bucket compared to Iran's capabilities before this war, and certainly before the June war. We know that the Israelis have said today that they have destroyed approximately half of the missile capabilities of the Iranians, of the missile stores of the Iranians. So this just gives you a small taste of what we would have been up against had we let this ballistic missile threat get worse. And therefore, my point being that even though there are some deaths that come with these strikes by the Iranians, it's not like there's regrets on the Israeli side for dealing with this existential threat from Iran. Let's get to some other political issues that are going on here. So there were also 3 U.S. soldiers who were killed and 5 injured in this war. This was announced earlier today by CENTCOM. 3 U.S. servicemen were killed in action, 5 others seriously wounded. And they didn't really give too many details about it. They want to inform the families first. But this is a big development. I talked about this in the lead up to the war, that the American people, and I just mentioned it now, the American people have basically said that that they're not willing to stomach any casualties. And Trump, in his opening remarks at the launch of the war yesterday, or Friday night in America time, said that there could be some deaths. And he was kind of preparing the American people for the fact that there could be loss of life involved here because of how much opposition there is to it. And I predicted before the war that once there would be some American lives lost, the political pressure would ramp up on Trump to end this thing quickly, because Americans don't really have a stomach for people coming home in body bags to fight this war overseas against the Iranians, especially when many Americans did not see the Iranian threat as an imminent threat that needed to be dealt with so urgently, and therefore the appetite for absorbing casualties is extremely low. And this could have political implications, again, because of the sentiment in the United States. At the same time, we have the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, is announcing that no ships will be allowed through the Straits of Hormuz. They basically sent out messages, and we see here how it's reported. An official from the European Union's naval mission, SPDES, said on Saturday that vessels operating in the Gulf have been receiving VHF radio messages from the IRGC, stating that no ship is allowed to pass the Strait of Hormuz. The official, who spoke to Reuters on condition of anonymity, said Iran has not formally confirmed issuing this order. But again, they are receiving these orders. The Straits of Hormuz is considered the world's most vital oil export route, serving as a critical choke point connecting major Gulf oil producers, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and the UAE, to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea, and ultimately on to India, China, etc. A fifth of the world's oil consumption passes through this narrow waterway. Okay, so here the Iranians are saying that they're closing the Straits of Hormuz. I will point out yet again that they tried to close the Straits of Hormuz during the 12-day war in June, but the Chinese forced them to reopen it. We'll see how this situation plays out. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about Saudi Arabia because they've been behaving very strangely. On the one hand, the Saudis seem to be really pushing publicly against attacks on the Iranian regime before this all happened. And they also had made a sharp turn against the Israelis diplomatically over the last few months, hardening their stance on the issue of normalization with Israel. And they seem to be playing their constant game. Just to recap, the Saudis for years have been playing this cat and mouse game with the West, where sometimes they cozy up to the Chinese, and then sometimes they cozy up to the Americans, and then they go back to the Chinese, and also in the Muslim world, where they'll be in the camp of the Abraham Accords type moderate states that want normalization with Israel and want better relations with the West, but then they'll shift back over to the more radical side, the more Islamist side. They talk about being pro-Western, but they're also one of the worst countries when it comes to persecuting Christians. They're constantly playing both sides. This is their game. And part of the reason that they do this is that they see themselves as extremely strategically important to everyone. Because if you look at a map and you see how Saudi Arabia is this massive landmass that is so important for trade routes and security, and it sits on vital waterways, that everyone wants them on their side. And I was saying in my analysis before this war that I believe that the Saudis were against war with Iran, were against the Iranian regime falling, because if the Iranian regime falls and it becomes a pro-Western state, then the Saudis are less strategically important and they lose a lot of their leverage. And therefore, they would be somewhat rendered irrelevant geopolitically in comparison to their current status, and that therefore they would be opposed to bringing down the Iranian regime. And that was interesting because reports came out right after the attacks started yesterday that it was actually the Saudis behind the scenes, along with the Israelis, who were pushing the United States to attack. So I'm trying to sort this out. And I noticed these two headlines I want to share with you. One of them is that Saudi Arabia issued a public denouncement of the attacks on the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia condemns and denounces in the strongest terms the treacherous Iranian aggression and the blatant violation of the sovereignty of each of the United Emirates, the Kingdom of Bahrain, the State of Qatar, the State of Kuwait, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, affirming its full solidarity and standing by the side of the sister states. The statement warned of the grave consequences of the continued violation of the sovereignty of states and the principles of international law. It didn't mention Israel or the U.S. And another Wall Street Journal story saying that Saudi Arabia had intercepted an Iranian attack on Riyadh, on Saudi Arabia itself. Saudi Arabia said it repelled cowardly attacks by Iran against the region around its capital, Riyadh, and other locations in the eastern part of the country, in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia. It condemned Tehran for attacking, even though Saudi Arabia said it wasn't allowing its territory or airspace to be used in U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran. Okay, so here we have the Saudis who are coming out with these strong statements against the Iranians and reportedly were in favor of attacks. So what to make of that? Are the Saudis again playing every side, making it seem like they're against the attacks, but really they're in favor of the attacks? Whose side are the Saudis on? And it could be that the Saudis are just front runners and they're always looking to see who's going to win, and that over the last few months, they saw that the Qataris and the Turks, with their hardline stance on Israel, were very much influencing American policy, and that maybe the Middle East was moving in that direction. So they got into that camp. But now that they see that Israel and the U.S. are really going for it when it comes to the Iranian regime, that they want to be on the winning side of that. It's hard to read what the Saudis are doing. I'll keep talking about this in the days to come as we watch their behavior. But I have a hunch that what they really want is for this war to end with the regime very weak, but not totally fallen. And I say that because of this story. This was in Arab News. It was reported in a lot of places, but Arab News is a Saudi outlet, and I thought it was interesting because they don't cover everything. They choose which stories to run. Again, this is a Saudi regime outlet. This is an outlet, Arab News, owned by a member of the Saudi royal family. And they report on this: U.S. military operations ahead of schedule. Iranian leaders want to talk. Trump. Okay. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Sunday that Iran's new leadership wants to talk to him and that he has agreed, according to an interview with The Atlantic magazine. Quote, "They want to talk and I've agreed to talk, so I'll be talking to them. They should have done it sooner. They should have given what was a very practical and easy, what was very practical. They should have given what was very practical and easy to do sooner. They waited too long," Trump said in the interview from his Florida residence. He did not specify who he'd be talking to and when it would be happening. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said a leadership council composed of himself, the head of the judiciary, and a member of the powerful Guardians Council had temporarily assumed the duties of the supreme leader following the death of Khamenei. Right? And Trump pointed out that some of the people involved in the recent talks are no longer alive. And he says they could have made a deal. They should have done it sooner. They played too cute. Trump also said Sunday that 48 Iranian leaders have been killed in the U.S.-Israeli bombardments of the country and that the offensive is very positive. Quote, "Nobody can believe the success we're having. 48 leaders gone in one shot, and it's moving along rapidly." He said that to Fox. And Trump claimed overall success in the war, which was launched Saturday with the goal of removing Iran's leadership and destroying its military. Iran has confirmed the death of its supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. "We're doing our job, not just for us, but for the world, and everything is ahead of schedule." Okay, so here is kind of uncritically the Saudi outlet presenting this news item about how the Iranian regime is willing to talk and is putting together this council that's going to run things, but at the same time that the goal of the United States is regime change. Now, here's what I am looking for. I'm not saying I hope this happens. I'm not saying I think it's going to, but I'm looking for this to see if it signals where the Saudis are going. If it's true that they're suddenly going to start talking and that this new group leading Iran without the Ayatollah, led by Pezeshkian, who is known as more of a moderate type, less of a hardcore jihadist or a hardcore religious guy in the way that the supreme leader is. He's more known as what's called the reformers, who aren't really reformers. They're still part of the regime. But they're less hardcore on the Islam stuff. If Pezeshkian gets a little group together and they start negotiating with Trump and they give him a ladder to climb down off of, and the regime kind of stays in power, but it's not as aggressive, and it's not as, and it's really the same criminals running the show, and they kind of keep their heads down till the end of the Trump administration, and they ease up on some of the heavy persecution of their own people, we could see something. This is what I've been warning about, that looks like a regime change. And that might be something that the Saudis want. The Saudis would be perfectly happy if there is a more moderate Islamic regime in Iran, but they don't want it to be a democracy. The last thing the Saudis want is a full-on Western-style free democracy where Christianity is free and flourishing, because there is a growing underground church, and a lot of Iranians are rejecting Islam because of their hatred of the regime. That the Saudis don't want. So I suspect that the Saudis are going to be pushing this angle of looking for a ceasefire, looking for talks with a very weakened Iranian regime. That's what I'm keeping my eye out for. Maybe I'll be wrong, but something to watch. Now, on the Iran side, I was looking at WANA, which is the Iranian regime media. We're going to look at a number of headlines that they've posted today because, again, Iranian regime media tells us what they're signaling and where they want this to go. So first of all, there was this interesting headline: a warning to Iran's northern neighbors. Check this one out. And the article is accompanied by a picture of Iran's northern neighbors. You see Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, right? You got Russia up there. Sources indicate that if any of Iran's northern neighbors who have so far not been targets of Iranian missile strikes become involved in the military aggression by the U.S. and Israel, these countries will be added to Iran's target list. Sources indicate, look, sources indicate, this is Iran regime media. They're saying it. This is like, it's basically a press release warning them, okay? The sources further warn that Iran's northern neighbors, if they support the U.S. and Israeli attacks, will face missile strikes similar to those directed at the Persian Gulf states. In the past few hours, several foreign media outlets have reported the deployment of U.S. and Israeli fighter jets in two of Iran's northern neighboring countries. Aha. So the Iranians are saying, we know that the U.S. and Israel are setting up shop in two of our northern neighbors. We're not going to name them, but we're warning all of the northern neighbors that if you participate in this, we're going to attack you with our missiles. Okay? Based on information released by Iranian official sources, the following locations were listed among the targets. And then it gives us all the different countries and where they were attacking. Israel military sites, Bahrain, headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet and another base, Qatar, Kuwait, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq. All the U.S. bases and assets are listed in this article. It doesn't list any specific countries in the north, but you see this is an interesting press release, as it were, warning Iran's northern neighbors. Also of note in WANA is they ran a number of stories of people mourning the death of the supreme leader, because we've seen all over the place celebrations. I made a video earlier today about some of the positive reactions to celebrations in the streets and in the West, celebrating the death of Khamenei. But it's, of course, in Iran's interest to say, no, 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 no. There are people all over the world who are mourning it. So here's a story about Shiites in India who are mourning the death of Ali Khamenei, and they show a big demonstration of all these people in the mosques, in the Shiite mosques in Kashmir and Jammu, in areas that have a lot of Shiite Muslims in India, okay? And then look at this one. Putin offers condolences over the assassination of Iran's supreme leader, Vladimir Putin. Now, Vladimir Putin, I find this laughable. Why? Because in January of 2025, about a year ago, the Russians signed a strategic partnership with Iran. It was a defense and security partnership. According to that agreement, the Russians are supposed to help the Iranians in a defense and security situation. They're not lifting a finger. But Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences to the people of Iran. He called Ayatollah Khamenei an outstanding statesman who played a major role in developing friendly relations between Russia and Iran. He concluded by expressing sympathy with the Iranian nation and government, reaffirming Moscow's commitment to the continuation of strategic cooperation between the two countries. But he's not lifting a finger to help them in this war. I love Putin. I don't love Putin. I'm kidding. I'm saying that cynically. He's such a character. He signs a strategic cooperation agreement with them. It says that it includes defense and security. Iran gets attacked. He doesn't lift a finger. He offers condolences and says that we're still committed to strategic cooperation. All right. There's Putin for you. And then this is very important. Turkey and Azerbaijan extend condolences to Iran. Look at that. No condolences from Saudi Arabia, no condolences from Jordan, no condolences from, I don't know, Ashara in Syria, no condolences from Egypt. Who's expressing condolences? Turkey and Azerbaijan. Look at that. The Turkish foreign minister, Hakan Fidan, right? During separate calls, Turkish foreign minister Hakan Fidan and Azerbaijani foreign minister Ceyhun Bayramov expressed their official condolences regarding the assassination of the supreme leader. Okay? So this is significant because Turkey is supposed to be an ally of the United States. Qatar and Turkey have been like blood brothers for the last couple of years, working together. Qatar is being attacked by Iran and is certainly not offering any condolences. None of the other Arab states are offering condolences, the other Muslim states, but Turkey stepped up to offer condolences. And we might see them playing a diplomatic role, trying to bring a premature ceasefire and save the regime from total collapse. So let's keep an eye on Turkey. Let's keep an eye on Saudi Arabia. And now let's check in on what else to look for in the coming days. So first of all, we have Prime Minister Netanyahu stood on top of the Kiryat, that's the military headquarters in Tel Aviv, the military and intelligence headquarters in Tel Aviv. He stood on the top of the Kiryat on the roof, and he recorded a video where he said that we will intensify Iran attacks in the coming days. Yesterday, we eliminated the dictator Khamenei. Together with him, we eliminated dozens of senior officials of the oppressive regime. Our forces are now in the heart of Tehran with increasing strength, and this will only increase even more in the coming days. We are in a campaign in which we are bringing the entire strength of the IDF as never before to this campaign to ensure our existence and our future. This combination of forces allows us to do what I've been hoping to do for 40 years, to strike the terrorist regime squarely in the hip. That's what I promised, and that is what we will do. Okay, and he also expressed his condolences for the deaths of those, his mourning for those who were killed in the attack in Beit Shemesh that I started this video with. So you see here that Prime Minister Netanyahu is talking about escalation, intensifying the attacks in the coming days, that it's going to get even heavier, and the Israelis are now attacking regime targets in Tehran. They've opened up air superiority, air dominance pretty much all across Iran, and they're saying that it's going to intensify. Meanwhile, we have Trump talking about talks, right? U.S. military operations ahead of schedule, right? Ahead of schedule. We looked at this already, but Iranian leaders want to talk, says Trump. So Trump might be interested in talks and bringing this to a swift conclusion. Especially, we have U.S. casualties, which just happened today, and therefore we haven't even seen what the political pressure on Trump looks like with American servicemen coming home in body bags. So we could be looking at a situation where Trump wants an off-ramp, Turkey, maybe the Saudis, maybe the Qataris, maybe some of the other actors are like, hey, look, we're thrilled to see the Iranian regime get slapped around, but we don't want it to fall, okay? Because I don't believe that they want the regime to fall. I believe that they want it to be weak, but not fall. I think we might see an interesting situation where Trump is stopping short of bringing down the regime, or doesn't feel that it's his job to bring down the regime, which again, really it isn't. It is the job of the Iranian people, but that Trump is going to look for a quick off ramp and to end this rather soon. And meanwhile, the Israelis are saying, no, we're just getting started. So it could be an interesting collision course there. And it'll be interesting to see how the Israelis react if the Americans want to end the war, but the Israelis want to continue, because the interests of Israel and of the United States are not identical. And we have to remember that at all times. They are not the same. There's a lot of overlap and certainly a lot of cooperation, but they don't necessarily have the exact same interests here. So this is where things stand, and we'll be watching these various plot lines as things progress. All right. So thank you everyone for your prayers, and let's keep our eye on the ball. Keep watching what we're putting up on this channel, and make sure to check out everything that we're doing at Israel 365 News YouTube channel as well. God bless you.